Okay, let's get right into it.
Sounds good.
We're talking today about something that, well, maybe sounds a bit dry at first glance, getting documents notarized.
Right. Not always the most exciting topic.
But, stick with us here because there's actually a pretty big change happening right now in Massachusetts. Something that could genuinely make this whole process quite a bit easier for you.
Yeah, we've been looking at a source. It's a transcript from a YouTube video.
That's right.
And it really digs into notary services, specifically there in Massachusetts. It flags up some pretty significant news.
And, okay, here's the headline, sort of the key takeaway from this source.
Yeah.
Massachusetts has officially approved remote online notary services.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. It's under something called Chapter 2 of the Acts of 2023.
Chapter 2, Acts of 2023.
Got it. And the basic idea is, you might soon be able to get things notarized without actually having to be physically face-to-face with a notary public.
That's potentially a huge shift, a real game changer, like you said.
Definitely.
And what's interesting, the source points out this law isn't just like a proposal.
Yeah.
It actually took effect pretty recently, January 1st, 2024.
January 1st this year. So legally speaking, the framework is already in place.
That's right. The law is on the books.
Okay. So our mission then for this deep dive, drawing from this source material, is to try and figure out what approved really means right now, like today.
Yeah, what's the actual current status?
Exactly. Because you know how it is with new tech and regulations.
Yeah.
There's often a bit of a lag, right?
Really?
Between the law passing and everything being fully up and running.
And that's really the core point our source gets into. Even though the law is active,
yeah,
you probably can't just hop online today and get everything notarized remotely in Massachusetts. Not just yet.
Okay, so why not? If the law kicked in January 1st, what's the holdup?
Well, the source explains that the Secretary of the Commonwealth, they're still working on it. They're in the process of establishing the really crucial standards needed for this all to work properly, safely, effectively.
That is like what exactly?
It involves setting guidelines for the technology itself, the secure communication platforms that people will use.
Right, the actual software.
Yeah, and maybe the most important piece, identity proofing.
Identity proofing. Remotely. That makes total sense.
It does.
I mean, how do you make sure someone is who they claim to be when you're not, physically looking at their driver's license right there?
Exactly. That sounds like, a pretty complex piece to figure out.
Yeah.
It really is. It often involves, layers of checks, maybe knowledge-based questions, sometimes biometric stuff, checking digital IDs very carefully. So the state needs really robust rules to, prevent fraud. That's key.
So until the secretary actually finalizes and adopts those specific regulations, the sort of how-to guide.
Precisely.
That vision of just clicking a button for seamless online notarization, it's still kind of waiting.
Waiting in the wings, yeah. That's a good way to put it.
Gotcha. So the light's green, but the actual driving instructions are still being written.
Right. And our source even mentioned one specific type of document that has kind of an extra layer of consideration. Registered land documents.
Land documents. Okay, what about them?
The video transcript notes that the land court itself...
The land court, right.
...will be issuing its own specific guidelines for how these particular documents have to be handled when they're notarized using this new remote online method.
Interesting. So that just shows you, I guess, how much detail and careful thought is going into this whole thing before they just, unleash it.
Exactly. It's not like flipping a switch.
No.
It's about building a whole secure system, really, from the ground up.
Okay. So the big takeaway then from this source for you listening, if you're in Massachusetts and this idea of remote notarization sounds good.
It probably does.
Right. It's that while the legal foundation is absolutely there, as of January 1st, 2024, the law is passed.
The practical reality right now is you kind of need to sit tight and stay tuned. That's how the source puts it.
Sit tight and stay tuned.
Yeah.
Yeah. Full implementation really hinges on these technical and these identity standards getting officially adopted.
By the Secretary of the Commonwealth.
Right. And, keep an eye out for those specific land court rules, too, if that's relevant for what you're doing.
Makes sense.
So, yeah. Waiting game for a bit longer.
Which leaves us, I think, with kind of an interesting thing to chew on, right?
What's that?
Once these regulations are finally nailed down, once they're implemented, what will that actual, day-to-day remote online notary experience really look like?
Yeah, good question.
How will the tech manage to be both super convenient and totally secure?
What kind of ID checks will become, the standard procedure?
Exactly. It's this future that's definitely approved. It's coming.
Yeah.
But the fine print, the real texture of it, is still being worked out.
Still being shaped, yeah. Interesting times for notarization in Massachusetts.